Hey everybody, Gormos here with some more Warthunder historic battle footage. So, after I took a look at some low tier turn fighters last week, I thought this time I go for a high wing loading plane again, and since I've never tried the level 12 F4U-1C Corsair before, I thought I'd give this one a try, so I can also compare it a bit with the level 13 P51D. So, let's take a look at the plane stats. The Corsair is of course a boom and zoom plane. It is very fast and also one of the heaviest single engine fighters in the game, with only the B-47 being even heavier. So not surprisingly, the Corsair is one of the best divers and zoom climbers in the game. I would even go as far as to say from all the planes that I have flown in Warthunder so far, it is the best zoom climber. But of course, the heavy weight also means its rate of climb is not very good, so as always with heavy planes like that, you want to spend a little extra time climbing. Now, the plane does have a pretty large wing. That is typical for carrier-borne fighters, as the large wing increases the low-speed handling, even though the Corsair ended up being used more often from land-based airfields than carriers. So, thanks to the large wing, the wing loading is not quite as high as could be expected from a plane this heavy. A Focke-Wulf 190, for example, has a much higher wing loading despite being lighter, and therefore the Corsair turns better than one. Still, the wing loading of the plane is very high, slightly higher than that of the P51D, so turning should be avoided in this plane. The advantage of the Corsair is its speed, good dive characteristics and zoom climb, and that should be exploited as much as possible. Now, the plane can withstand a very high G-loading, and as many US fighters, it has a good initial maneuverability at high speeds. It can't pull quite as tight as the Mustang when coming out of a dive. The Mustang manages about 3G more at a similar speed, but high-speed maneuverability is still very good on the Corsair, and it rolls better than the Mustang. Roll, especially at high speeds, is exceptional, with only very few planes like the 190 being better at rolling. This mix of good high-speed maneuverability and roll, as well as the fact that the plane is a pretty stable gun platform, helps a lot when lining up shots in diving attacks. Of course, with its heavy weight, the plane loses speed very fast in a turn, which means while you can do a sharp initial turn to adjust your aim when diving on a target, should you keep turning, you will be too slow very fast. Now, let's move on to the armament. That is where the big difference between the 1C and the other two Corsair variants currently in the game lies. The 1C has 4 20mm cannons with a large ammo supply instead of the 650 caliber machine guns the other Corsairs have. I really like this armament upgrade on the Corsair. As I have said in the P51 video, with the planes getting faster and faster at higher tiers, the time to aim and fire before you zoom past the target gets shorter and shorter. This in combination with the currently not very punishing damage model in historic battles means that having this cannon armament greatly increases your chances for terminal hits in the first pass, so it is more likely that you can move on to the next target right away. Well, that was some info on the plane. Let's take a look at a few fights in it. This first match takes place on the Guadalcanal map. Here a friendly Spitfire got bounced by a Zero from above and is apparently going down. But he also dragged the Zeros down in the process, giving me and another Spitfire the chance to approach the fight with an altitude advantage. Now usually I would try to get directly above the Zeros before attacking, but in this case I was not sure if the damaged Spitfire is really going down or not, and I wanted to get there as fast as possible. So I fly directly towards them in a more shallow dive. The idea being to fly through their formation, guns blazing, and then use the speed and good zoom climb of the Corsair to get right above them. The other Spitfire is doing a similar attack. Now again, I would have liked to get into a better position above them before attacking again, but the Zeros are after the Spitfire and I am not 100% sure if the Spit is fast enough to get away at this point, so I want to get the Zeros off him. Beside me, he is the last fighter left after all. I can easily attack and keep going without them being able to follow, I am much faster after all, but I'm not quite fast enough to do a sharp zoom climb safely. I would have to gain separation in level flight, but surprisingly the Spitfire turns around and attacks again. I did not expect that. But this gives me good opportunity to attack again. I am a bit slow to turn around because I expected at least one of the Zeros to keep going for me. However, all of them turn after the Spitfire. And this time the Zeros appear to be a lot closer to the Spit, so it is a race against the time to get there before the Zeros get the Spitfire. One of the Zeros breaks off. Maybe he has seen me, or he was damaged in the fighting and is returning back to base. And I think about firing on him should he present me with a good opportunity. But I would have to maneuver and slow down too much to get the shot, so I keep going after the other two. As long as I keep going straight, I don't have to fear that the Zero that break off get behind me. I am too fast for that. And as it turns out later, this Zero that just broke off won't return to the fight. I'm not sure what happened to him, maybe he crashed on landing, but he's out of the fight. That leaves the two in front of me. The one closer to me spots me and turns around. If it would be just him, I could zoom climb here and get above him, but I want to try to save the Spitfire, so I keep chasing the Zero that is still on him. The danger here is that I could hit the Spitfire when firing at the Zero, so I hold my fire for a bit, hoping for an opportunity to fire on it while the Spit is out of the way. But the Zero is getting closer to the Spit and I just can't wait any longer, so I decide to take the risk and I hit the Zero. And then we just keep going. The Spitfire moves directly to the airbase to repair, and I stay above him to escort him. While the Spitfire is repairing on the airbase, I spot the black dot of the last remaining Zero coming towards the airbase. And since I don't know how long the Spitfire needs to repair, I move to intercept so that he can't intercept the Spitfire on takeoff. He has not spotted me and probably assumes we are both on the airfield, so I can get above him and attack from behind, get a hit and then zoom climb away again to stay above him. Now I only did this 90-degree zoom climb because I could see that he would lose altitude and speed in his evasive action. If I would have not managed to force him to evade, the speed difference in this situation would not have been enough to do a 90-degree climb like that safely. You need a big speed difference to do that versus a Zero. The reason is, as you will see after my next attack, that the Zero has the ability to keep the nose pointed straight up and still aim accurately for very long. So if you try to zoom climb away from a Zero like that and you don't have enough speed to gain distance very fast, the Zero has a good chance of hitting you. As you can see, this is already cutting it a little close and a lot of shots get pretty close to my plane. But at least the Zero is getting really slow and presents a very easy target for my next attack. Despite that, I mess up the shot and miss. Always a pity to miss a shot like that, but it happens. Now I am of course too slow for a zoom climb, so I have to continue straight to gain some separation. But luckily, just in that moment, the Spitfire comes back and forces the Zero to evade, so I can turn around right away. The Zero moves away. He of course can't outrun me or the Spitfire, but I assume he wants to build up some speed before turning around. I follow him directly and with the slight descent I can build up a nice amount of speed. Now I expect him of course to do a sharp turn as soon as I get too close. Here I have to say though, I react a bit suboptimal. I should use my speed to go up in a loop and zoom climb above him as soon as he does that, but in a slight lapse of judgment I decide to go for a deflection shot in a high-speed pass instead. In a 1v1 situation that could have unnecessarily prolonged the fight, as I would be forced to gain a bit of separation again, but in this case it does not matter as the Spitfire forces him to turn again and I can go back on the offensive. The Zero gets behind the Spit, but in a 1 vs 2 situation his options are limited. If he goes for the Spitfire I can get behind him, and if he goes for me the Spitfire can do so. And the Zero is not fast enough to get away from this situation. An advantage of the Corsair, especially on the Pacific maps, as it can get out of most situations by using its speed. Well, that was the last plane. Let's take a look at another fight on Iwo Jima. Now, what I usually like to do in a boom and zoom plane is stay close enough to a group of friendlies to assist, but still far enough away that the potential enemy hopefully spots only one of us. The idea is, should my team get attacked from above, they can hopefully drag the opponent lower before he spots me and I can get above him, or the other way around. Should I get attacked from above, I can hopefully drag the opponent lower and towards friendlies before they are spotted and my team can get an altitude advantage. Here we have a situation where my team gets attacked from above. A Focke-Wulf 190 is attacking a P-38. I was climbing to the side a bit and I am a bit further away than I would have liked, but it looks like the 190 is diving down after the P-38, so I can get above him when I arrive. However, as I get closer I can spot two additional dots, still on higher altitude. I expect they are zeros, but it turns out at least one of them is another 190. So as much as I would like to go straight after the 190 that is still attacking the P-38, I can't do that here without giving those other targets an opportunity to get above me. Instead, I stay up hoping to get above all of them. I lose sight on the third enemy, but at least two of them are below me now, and I expect the third one is as well, so I follow them down. Diving down though, I am nearing the kind of speed where I can't maneuver properly anymore without risking to lose wings, so I loop around to lose a bit of speed and then go after the 190 that is flying in the same direction I am. The other 190 is climbing the other way. I am still very fast, so my plan is to attack the 190 and then zoom climb straight up. With my speed, that should give me enough altitude back to be above both 190s again, even the one that climbed away the other direction. However, as I line up my shot, the third opponent, which I lost sight on earlier, reappears. Another 190, a bit higher. He is in a position to intercept me should I zoom climb, so instead I decide to just keep going straight after the attack and watch what he is doing. This new arrival seems to go after a Spitfire that is also coming this way though, so I can attack him. I look back to see what the 190 I just attacked is doing to make sure he can't go after me when I attack this new 190, but he appears to be damaged and is losing altitude. The new arrival meanwhile lost quite a bit of energy going for the Spitfire and I can catch up to him pretty easy when he zoom climbs. He goes into a split S when I approach. I'm not sure if he spotted me and did this to evade or if he wanted to go for the Spitfire again. Either way, while the Corsair is not the best turner around, the 190 is even worse. So following and getting enough lead to fire is not difficult in this situation. While this was going on though, the last undamaged 190, the one I originally spotted, used the time to climb back to altitude and he reappeared above the island and is a bit higher than me. Since I am higher than the Spitfire, which is chasing the damaged 190, I assume this one will be going for me, so I move away a bit while climbing. But then I lose sight on him again, which means he can most likely not see me either at this point. And indeed it seems he's diving on the Spitfire, which he can see, so I turn around to get ready to intercept him when he comes back up. The 190 fires on the Spitfire, but the Spitfire evades the fire of the 190, and then the 190 climbs away. I don't know if he can see me at this point, but the sun is in his direction, so if I see him, he should be able to see me too. Now, he lost much energy in his attack, and the Corsair is faster than the 190 in general. So I can intercept him when he climbs past me and get behind him. And after a few salvos I can take him out. Now a funny side note, that 190 was the last player-controlled plane on the enemy team. However, it still took us about 20 minutes to find the last AI plane to win the match, as it was hiding somewhere on the map. When I finally found him, I was the last plane alive. The others crashed reloading or got shot down by AAA. That hiding AI plane almost cost us the match. Well, let's take a look at another round. Here we have a pretty small match and there are only 2 planes left per side. My Corsair and the P-24 on my team, and on the enemy team this G5M as well as a second plane. At this point I do not know what the second plane is, but I saw a message a bit earlier telling me that my fleet is under attack. So at this point I assume it is another bomber and he's far away over the fleet. What I however apparently missed was a kill message that told me that the bomber got shot down by a friendly destroyer. So whatever this other plane is on the enemy team, it is not the bomber that was attacking my fleet. But since I expect another bomber, I attack the G5M without paying too much attention to my surroundings. Well, you can most likely guess what happens next. After another pass on the G5M, I take some fire. And at first I think it's an AI plane, but there are too many tracers for that. It's a zero. Luckily for me, I tend to boom and zoom bombers to reduce exposure to their defensive fire, so I am not too slow, and I still have a little bit of altitude to accelerate, so I can get some separation pretty quickly, but not before taking some fire. Luckily the shots don't hit anything important. Now the zero can't of course catch up to me, but he is following me and climbing. That is what I would do in his place as well. I am faster, but I can't keep flying straight forever. The level will end eventually, and in this case the border is pretty close in the direction that I am flying. When I turn, the zero can use its altitude to speed up and intercept me, especially if I don't have the altitude to dive. So I start climbing myself to regain altitude. That slows me down for now, but I have to change direction soon anyway, and when I do, I want to have enough altitude to speed back up right away in the new direction. A good choice of course is to change direction towards the friendly fleet, to make use of its AA guns should it become necessary. This is not the case here though. It appears he loses sight of me in the clouds after I change direction, and he went for the friendly B-24 instead. I could track him while he moved towards the B-24, so now it is my turn to surprise him while he attacks a bomber. Coming down for my first pass, I get a good hit and a critical, and then I soon climb away, but not too steep as my speed advantage is not too great and I don't want to give him a chance to fire after me hanging on his prop. But looking back I can see that he is not following and I can loop around for another attack. The low-hanging cloud cover gives me a bit of trouble though, and I almost lose track of him, but I can still spot the small dot in the clouds. Of course I can't tell which direction he is facing while the cloud is hiding him, so I might run into a head-on, but there's not much I can do about that, and chances are he can't see me at all. And it turns out he is not facing in my direction as I had feared. Instead I catch him while climbing and get the final blow. And conveniently, the G5M is right below me, so I can get right back to where I left off and keep attacking the bomber. This time I really know there are no more fighters around. The G5 is the last plane on the enemy team. Now, I mentioned a little earlier that I like to fly towards the friendly fleet when I need to get away from a situation to use its AA cover should it be necessary. Now, it wasn't necessary here, but I would like to show you one last short clip where it was. This is on Guadalcanal again, and I approach a little furball below me. I am just about to set up a diving attack on one of the zeros when I notice two new arrivals, two more zeros quite a bit above me. Now, since I am the highest friendly plane at the moment, it is safe to assume that those zeros will attack me, so I will have to dive away eventually. But since I have to dive anyway, and since there is still a zero below me, I decide to attack the zero and then use the speed from the dive to get away. Should the higher zeros follow me, I can drag them down, and if they do not, I can soon climb and get back to altitude. Now it turns out the two zeros indeed follow me, and with their altitude advantage they can even keep up with me by trading altitude for speed. But of course that was the idea, get them lower so that they are less of a threat for the rest of my team. But still, I would of course like to get rid of them once they are low enough, somewhat fast. Of course I can just outrun them, but that takes a while and there are of course those level borders you can run into. That is where the fleet is coming in. I pass above it at high altitude while the zeros slowly come closer. Once I passed above the fleet and I figure the zeros are close enough for what I have in mind, I do a split S and build up speed while diving almost to the water and pass below the zeros and head back right for the fleet. The zeros of course can trade their altitude to come closer, but I build up enough speed from the dive that I am, for a short time, faster in level flight than the zeros can manage in a dive, so they don't get too close and fall back right away after leveling out. Now, they are definitely lower than any fighter left alive on my team, and they have no more altitude to trade for speed, so they can't catch up to me anymore. And since I, with the Zeros behind me, head directly for the friendly fleet, they have to either fly over all the AA in an attempt to stay close to me, or they have to break off their chase altogether. And this is what they do in this case, giving me the opportunity to climb again and come back. Now, I did run out of recording space after that, but the rest of this fight was not very impressive anyway. I just wanted to show you this clip to further explain what I meant in the previous fight. Well, and this is it for this video. As always, I hope it was entertaining, thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.